We're going to start off with Dr. Roger Clemens. He's a well-regarded authority on nutrition and food issues. He's often quoted by many media outlets. A long-standing volunteer leader and former president of the Institute of Food Technologists. He's familiar with food trends and industry association perspectives. He's the chief science officer of HORN and an adjunct professor of pharmacology and pharmaceutical sciences within the USC, and he likes to say the University of Spoiled Children School of Pharmacy. He served on the USDA 2010 Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee as well. Roger and I go back many years, and I think I'll just go ahead and turn it over to him. Thanks.
Thank you, David. Yes, we were actually cycling buddies for those years. Remember, we formed and co-founded the cycling team at a little company called Carnation that was bought by Nestle in 1985. But we're going to spend the next few minutes to really talk about bugs. You like bugs? Have you heard the word probiotics?
Yes.
Why do we concern about probiotics? Health, gut health, maybe bigger than that. It's interesting, when I went to the FDA in 1990, and I was working in pediatrics at the time, and said we should do this type of research. And they said, huh? They didn't have a clue what it was about relative to the microbiome. I was at Johns Hopkins University, did our little school outside of Baltimore. So we initiated this important study. Since the last 25 years, this whole concept of probiotics has mushroomed. Can you say that in this group? Has skyrocketed. Anyway, today we want to look at what is the evidence that we have when it comes to our four-legged friends. So bear with me and we'll have some fun doing just that. Try to do new techniques today, so let's have some fun. This is who I am. You can reach me at USC. I'm the only professor at USC as Clemens, and I'm not the baseball player. All disappointed, right? Yes, I should have had the Boston Red Sox hat with me, and I'll sign signature, right? Boston Roger signed my hat today. By the way, you can have this presentation. It's public domain. You say, Roger, I'd like a copy. No problem, we can do it. I have the Prezi format here, but I also have the standard PowerPoint format for you, so if you like that, or PDF, I can send that to you. Free of charge, make it happen, so it helps you to better understand this concept of probiotics. Well, what we have to understand when it comes to probiotics. So we're going to go through a couple of sceneries. So who's this? And obviously, these are things we want to do today. What are probiotics? And you can read this pretty well. But it's key here that we understand the sources of probiotics, what they're going to do, what's native to our probiotics, and what's native to our gut health, and what does it mean beyond the gut health? Is it more than just an immune function, as you can see here? And clearly, we must identify future research and where do we go? And what do we know? By the way, there will be a quiz at the end of the hour, so take out your pens. You ready for a quiz? You're smiling. Our pharmacy students always smile. So this is what we're going to do. So we have to look at the bugs. So who's this person? If you read the slide, you know who this person is. 1906, I know I was there. See, I got your attention. This is good. And Eli Mitchikoff indicated he identified some bacteria at the time, Lactobacillus in particular. He said, well, these seem to be friendly bacteria, and these bacteria are associated with some good outcomes relative to health. Over 100 years ago. What progress have we made in 100 years? Some would argue not much. Some would argue maybe not enough. But we are making progress since the days of Eli Mitchikoff. And this is all a good sign. So we'll go beyond Eli, but this is what he finds. What we need to do is identify these various definitions. And notice the commonality here. Organisms, microbial balance, and what is this word here? Live organisms. Do all organisms have to be live? And the answer is maybe not. See, gotcha. It really depends. It's a really great work out of Japan. It suggests, well, maybe not. So we've been yet right now the universal code, if you will, universal definition said there must be live microbes that are obviously not pathogens, but friendly bacteria to your gut and other parts of your body. So we'll stick with that for today, and we'll talk about the other aberrations later, okay? So we want, and this, I have to give my own definition here. I published that over 10 years ago, about 20 years ago. So we've come a long way since that time. So we want to jump over here. Well, where are they found? Well, this is a picture of a DOG, dog, good, there's hope. My grandchildren tell me that all the time. But see, bacteria are located everywhere, and we'll identify the key sites. And these organisms, these sites indicate the dominant organisms in the respective areas. They don't always keep up housekeeping in those areas, but these are the dominant organisms. Depending whether you ascribe to the theory that we have more, let's think about it this way. What is 3 pounds of mass that humans represent? Biomass. Bacteria that live in and on you is about 3 pounds worth for a typical adult. Ooh! Yucky! It's a yuck factor. But the yuck factor also transcends to our pets, dogs and cats and other animals. Think of your ruminant, the cow. It has lots of bacteria, and I'll be grateful for ruminants for the things that they produce. So we see here classic organisms. You recognize some of these names, maybe. Lactobacillus in particular. Helicobacter, maybe not the desired organism in some cases. We would agree with that. Clostridium, not so kind to us, obviously, but Lactobacillus is kind to us. And we see here Lactobacillus in another part of the GI tract. And this has a whole bunch of, it's interesting that many of these organisms also found in humans. Dominant organisms. Bacteroides, that type of bacterium that we sit here, and some are pathogenic. So we have that delicate balance. How come we don't have strep throat today? Because you maintain a balance in the GI and your throat. So we're healthy people with GI disturbances. And obviously the classic one we're looking at today is your genital tract, the lactobacillus again. That's a great work on humans in that area. Then we have the cat, same idea. And if you remember back to the other graphic, are these the same organisms located in the same spots? And the answer is, they're not. You see, the dominant organisms are shifting different parts of the animal body. So where the cats and dogs are different, more than just being cats and dogs. They differ in the microbial profile. Do you feed your cats the same food as you do your dog? And the answer is, you get it, you don't do that. Same true here, the bugs are different in the various animals. Keep this in mind. Well, let's see what else we have. The GI tract. Now, I was in pediatrics, it's mentioned, and so at lunchtime we talk about baby poop. Is that a good thing? Well, for me, it's another yuck factor. But anyway, we can talk about the point here is sometimes the organisms that sit in you, and same with the dogs and cats, on the left side of your screen, these are known as to be pathogens, cause disease. Over here on the right side of your screen, these are friendly bacteria, health-promoting bacteria. And you see here, this is along the GI tract. This is a count from 10 to the 2nd to 10 to the 11th. That's a lot of organisms. Take 10 times 10 times 11 times. You see, that's the number we have here. 10 to the 11th right here. A lot of organisms, and do they all reside in the same spot? See, they set up housekeeping in their own place, which is unique to them. You have a housekeeper when you live in Las Vegas. Who lives in Las Vegas? Not me. Wherever you sit at home, you're comfortable in your home, right? But if you live in somebody else's home, it's not the same. Same thing holds true here with these different organisms. They have a specific area where they want to live. Outside of that niche, they're not very happy and they don't live. So keep that in mind as we proceed forward. Then we look at beagles. Beagles are friendly dogs. I don't have one, by the way. I need to fix that, don't I? Yeah. The point of this graph is that what you see in the stool is not what you see in the small intestine. It differs, different part of the body. So a lot of times when we say we recover something in the stool, it must be so that's further up the GI tract. Not always the case. Look at the marked difference. Clostridium over here on the left-hand side of the screen is a known pathogen found in people, but what are we seeing in the GI tract? Not very much. And you see on down the line, bifidobacteria, that's considered a friendly bacteria that has two heads. Bifidobacteria bifurcation, So two-headed bacteria. Yeah, they really are two-headed bacteria. And a number of other forms, coliforms. We don't want coliforms, but they're part of the normal flora. And lactobacilli. See, key was we talk about lactobacilli so much. Well, how come we don't see it? Because the environment is not really friendly for them so much. But it's interesting. You just change a half a log. The lactobacillus in various parts of the GI tract makes a world of difference in the health of your animal today. And it makes a world of difference in you as humans as well. And some other bacteria that you will recognize here by name. Let's look at this. Here's we look at cats. Look at those cats. And so same names as we saw before, but different distribution. In this case, we'll look at healthy cats in the green bars and cats with inflammatory bowel disease. And obviously, if you look at inflammation, and it's an inflamed cat, do they have a lot of bacteria, different bacteria? And the answer is they don't. And that's part of the issue we have with a number of GI disturbances here. Clostridium, we expect Clostridium to be elevated because it's an inflammatory type of organism. Lactobacillus are pretty much the same. So what can you do to change it a bit? Bacteroides are everywhere here, non-pathogenic in normal cases. You see Bacteroides allows this to set up housekeeping with Clostridium. They're anaerobes. They don't need much to get growing. So we need to understand all this research has been done. And I think this is really a pivotal slide. I went back into PubMed and reviewed literature since 1976. I mean, I read everything. Look how many clinical studies there have been. Not very many. And most times you see clinical work that's been done to reduce or address a specific clinical issue. It could be skin disorder, it could be GI disorder, it could be a number of disorders, immune dysfunctions. But the bottom line is, you see, we don't have much information when it comes to these animals. There's a real need for research in this area. As indicated here, they focus on therapeutic. And in the human world, when you use the T word, therapy, it means it's a D-R-U-G. It's not health. You're looking at therapeutic as a drug issue. To treat, cure, mitigate, prevent, diagnose, those are 5 words associated with drugs. We're not looking at drugs, are we? We're looking at promote better health, reducing the risk of. That's exactly right. And none of the studies posted on PubMed address safety. Now, I've sat on a number of GRAS panels through my years, and many of the GRAS panels I've addressed safety with a number of great companies in this country and around the world. But when it comes to PubMed, we don't see anything on safety. Isn't that intriguing? Well, with that a bit of a background, we need to look at, see, what do we have here? So the question is, burning in everybody's heart is that, what's the best for my animal, right? Well, it just depends. So if you have a small dog, if you have a lap dog, or a big husky dog, they're different. Would you agree? Small dog, small breed, little big breed, they're different. And they differ in the microbial profile that they have in their guts. Make sense? So we need to understand that this is very important context. The first few hours post-birth is really critical. And actually dogs, like cats, have coprophagia. They consume the poop of babies. And that changes right here. That gives you the initiation of the microbial profile that's going to be in the cats and dogs or the pups in this particular case. Humans don't consume poop, last time I checked. So then we need to look at what do we do about this here. So we look at the market ever so briefly. This is straight off the website. Didn't have to make it up. Clearly, there's an opportunity here. You can read the numbers better than I can. But we need to understand the science behind the numbers as well. What is appropriate? This indicates what that market will be. And you can read that better, like I said. So obviously, there's a huge opportunity for you. But we need to understand. I always say we need to seek to understand. That's why you're here today, is to understand. Well, let's go down here a bit further. So, what do we know about labeling? Isn't that fascinating? Does it say in the label what's really there? Well, what does the slide tell you? Maybe and maybe not. I think that's problematic. Same thing happens, this is a peptide site, same thing happens in the human side of this really important aspect. So work that I did years ago, people out of the UK and then in Belgium, down in New Zealand, said we look at labels of different products on the US market and the European markets and Australian, New Zealand markets, they're not what they say they were. Counts what they were, not what they say they were. So clearly we need to be certain we have some harmonization and you should deliver what you hope to deliver. So we clearly see some issues from a statutory perspective here. And you want to, when you buy something, you expect to get what's on the label, don't you? Here we are. These are not my comments. We can talk about the science on a sidebar, but here we say here that made for dogs is actually just a human probiotic. That's probably true. They're not isolated from a dog necessarily, although many of the organisms that are for human consumption are not isolated from humans. Some are isolated from babies, as in neonates. But most of the organisms we see on the market today are not isolated from dogs, and we can actually debate whether that, or at least discuss if they're good or bad or indifferent. The point is, they're really, they're not, they say made for dogs, but they're not isolated from dogs. Interesting thought. Not isolated necessarily from your particular breed of dog. And in this particular comment over here, talking about a probiotic supplement is always simple if it's only one or two species, but too complex if it contains 10 or more. Every bug has a place to set up housekeeping in the GI tract and on the skin. It's not the same. And importantly, that these bugs do not set up housekeeping. It's a transit phenomenon, like setting up a tent. You set up your tent, tear it down, and move on to another place. And if you go backpacking, that is. Same thing with these bacteria. But during that transit time, they can have a phenomenal impact on health and health outcomes. These are some examples, and this is not straight off the internet. I have no bias of what's out there. This is a product by Natron, and obviously this is designed for what? Dogs. Caninophilus, how about that for the word? So they make the claims here, and they make the claims, and they could go on site to the website, they show what the data should be, and to support their claims. Are they necessarily good for your dog? I think that's really the question. Has the company invested research money into verifying that effect, the benefits they have for all breeds are really there? And based on what we saw earlier, maybe and maybe not. Here's some other ingredients right off the website. I didn't do any ad lib here. Again, here's a particular blend of compounds which may be beneficial for the dog, and which nice it's another marketed here. Guarantees live cultures. Don't tell you how much is there. Like yogurt today for humans, it says live and active cultures. That's established not by the FDA, established by the National Yogurt Association. The FDA does not regulate count for live organisms in yogurt. They have to be cultured with them, but not have to be alive when you and I consume them. These are a classic. This is another wonderful. It says the most powerful strains of beneficial bacteria. You have to do a lot of research to verify this. And I'm a scientist, so God we trust, everybody else must have data. So I'm always looking for data and how it compares to what we actually know. So it gives you some examples. Classically, you see these are 10 to the ninth. It's not 10 times 10 to the ninth, not 10 times 10 times 10, 9 times. By the way, I want to extend my appreciation to Sue Hayes, who actually helped put this together. I'm not a crazy person. They said, Roger, we can make this fun and exciting. So Sue put an extra effort out there. I did the plastic PowerPoint presentation. And we actually have this. So we have to look at this concept of prebiotics. My colleagues will address this. But you, like when sometimes you'll sit down and have a glass of wine, I'm going to guess you've had wine in your life. Just a thought. But you may like to have a particular wine with a particular type of meal or cuisine. So now you're pairing that wine with that environment, with that person, with that food. Same thing's true with these carbohydrates, mostly carbohydrates. And so you might have a food that you really like and you really grow well with it. But some things, does every food agree with you? And they don't. I can tell you, having some challenges the last several weeks, nothing agrees with me. I'm NPO right now. So you see that we have to look at the carbohydrate that's unique to the organism. We need to be pairing those organisms with the food that they like, so they will thrive in that environment. Nobody's done that. Great opportunity. And almost to the end here, this we want to look at. When you see here on the common market, chicory, these types of polymers from starches are quite common on the U.S. market and global market. This is amongst the first here. But you see here, inulin is very, very common, but the D piece has the degrees of polymerization. That is, how long is the chain? Some organisms really don't do well with long chains. Like ball and chains, how you do well with a little longer? Organisms really prefer something short, something easy to munch on. It's not folded up. But you have to look at what's the appropriate food for that particular strain of organism, and is that strain really beneficial for my particular dog or cat? And we see these, and these are least studied, but you start to see these types of compounds in pet foods. We certainly see them in human foods as well. Well, here's some more ingredients for you to read, and you see a number of things. So now they're looking at an organism, fermented product. What's really unique about this is that they've fermented the organism, but they're taking the matrix in which it was fermented and put it in the product. Very smart, actually, because organisms excrete a lot of goodies. And they say, well, this is good for my organism, maybe it's good for people too. It's one of very few companies I really think to include this is really smart. So now we have a combination as we wrap up. We want to look at things working together. It's the symbiotic approach, working together like love and marriage. Horse and carriage, remember those days? Man and marriage? No, don't get my day job. So we want to be working well together. The symbiosis type of factor, really my group, a friend of mine's out of Belgium and out of the UK defined what symbiosis is. Glenn Goodson, Marcel Roberfreud in Belgium. So this is the kind of work we need to be looking at when it comes to dogs and cats as well. This is what I'm beginning to characterize in humans, beginning and understand this in the pets is really the next phase as we look at pet food. Well, we understand the pairing concept, which I introduced to you just a few moments ago, and it gives you some ideas based on some published literature. I'll give you all this. It's really for free. I can give this to you. But I want you to learn from this that it's a pairing phenomenon. And the other part of the pairing is be sure that it's right for your breed. I think that's going to be critical for the future. Carbohydrate piece is to illustrate the concept of pairing. Do all organisms use the same carbohydrate? The answer is they don't. So you really can't take a carbohydrate off the shelf, an organism off the shelf, and put them together and say, this is going to work great. Because it really doesn't work that way. And this graphic particularly indicates that. One of the pieces most studied up here, of course, Lactobacillus and bifidobacterium. And you see here, while they do well with these types of carbohydrates, glucose and lactose, we look at this sugar right here, and raffinose and near sugar, which is an inulin type. Where do you get raffinose?
Peas.
Soy. So you see, that's the one that causes flatulence. Can we talk about flatulence here? It's okay. No, European communities get it. American communities don't like that. So you see here that it doesnn't utilize the sugar. So would bifidobacterium bifidum go well with raffinose? And the answer is, it would not. It's that pairing phenomenon. There's another combination of carbohydrates as in diet that may be beneficial. It's that combination that can really make a big difference. And almost lastly, here we have short chain fructose oligosaccharides. Most of them graduated from inulin, for artichoke hearts, for example. And you see, look at the difference here. Lactobacillus, does it grow well with this? No, it doesn't grow well. How about Bifidobacterium longum? Yeah, it grows well. You get the idea? Lactobacillus casei, only one strain, but it doesn't grow well here on FOS. So often we will see FOS in a variety of foods, but doesn't necessarily mean that the organism of interest is going to grow well in that medium. So you may well need a combination of carbohydrates in that particular product to get a spectrum of organisms to grow well. We spoke about carbohydrates yesterday. This is another example to expand this out to carbohydrate, the importance of different carbohydrates in the diet. Well, there's a lot of regulatory environment. Dr. DeZanis mentioned some of this, what AFCO does do, but it's really interesting to hear. Bottom line is, when we look at these sections under AFCO, you see microbial products, live organisms come back again, and also the method to actually recover. A lot of the process we have in pet food, you can't recover the organism because they've been thermally treated. So we have to look for non-thermal environments or other approaches to maintain the viability of the organisms right here. If you want more information on the regulation, Dr. DeZanis, myself, or some others will be glad to give you some assistance on this. Future research. This is where my heart is, in part. So clearly, we need to find what's unique amongst the breeds. So preliminary research indicates that breeds are very specific. Whether you're a big dog, little dog, middle dog, wherever your dog, same with cats. They're all different. We need to understand those differences. We're not there yet based on the absence of any research in this area, virtually absence right here. And to identify them so that we can actually make a better pet food when we look at these types of products opportunities here. And then this whole carbohydrate microflora profile. And one, to reduce pathogens which cause disease and also promote the health and well-being of the things that we want to have grow, as you might suspect. And then, what is the relationship? And one of them to say, well, we want to reduce the risk of inflammatory bowel disease or anything inflammation. Must keep in mind that inflammation is a normal, healthy process. If you stop inflammation, you will not heal well, I assure you. I went running this morning, and I assure you that my body would not heal if I were uninflamed temporarily. So we need to have that delicate balance, and our bodies are wonderfully made so that we have that balance normally. Some of the organs that are here can actually reduce some inflammatory conditions that we see, particularly that emanate from the GI tract. It may well be, as we demonstrated earlier, another set of research for a topic for another day, that some of these organs apply to like a transdermal patch that also help healing on the skin. You certainly see this in the military field dressings. You can stop bleeding, apply this patch so they serve as their own antibiotic at the same time without causing an infection. Important messages. They do not colonize. They don't set up hopping. It's a transit phenomenon. If you're newborn, you got but it's just a short time with a puppy or a kitten. For human babies, you have about 4 hours. For pups and cats, you have less than that. Obviously, and they differ amongst breeds. That's quite clear to date. We don't have very many clinical studies, and we desperately need some clinical studies to do this, but they're expensive, and I get that. But if you're going to be credible, you need to have research behind it. And lastly, and one of the things that David always talks about when we get together, how stable is that product in the finished goods. If it's not stable in that product after that process, you don't have anything. So these are some key elements for you to consider as you introduce your next product. That's it, and thank you very much. That's it. Thank you very much, everybody.